like for the algorithm.
Like for the algorithm.
Today I have my unbiological sister here. Hi, Taylor.
Hi.
She just graduated nursing school today, so give her a round of applause. Yeah, I'm very proud of you. Hey, I have a question for you.
I got a question.
Is having women in the workforce a good thing? Let us know. Taylor, what do you think initially?
I do think having women in the workplace is a good thing. It just brings a different perspective onto work. I feel as though each gender may have each person may be different. However, the way one gender thinks can be completely different from the way another gender thinks. So I just think it just includes a lot of different perspectives and could help the workplace just flourish.
I would agree with that. I agree with that. I would say it's a good thing too, just because I agree with what you said about perspective, because men and women do look at things differently. Men and women do look at different problems differently and how to solve those problems differently. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I would agree that it would be a good thing. I think the only way that it wouldn't be a good thing is if it involves strength. I think that would probably not be the best way to go.
Yeah, we would lose.
Yeah, we would lose. I don't know how much value we could add in that area, but yeah. Okay. Let us know in the comments what you guys think of that question. We want to know. Until then, let's move on to the next topic. So Sage Still speaks about toxic workplace. So Sage Still is, or was, ESPN commentator, she was a sportscaster. So she has this interesting interview with Megyn Kelly talking about her experience with ESPN and working with women in the workplace. So let's get into that.
Let's just spend a minute on life at ESPN, because my impression in knowing a few women sports reporters is, most of these female journalists in the sports world, they are cutthroat. I don't know if it's because it's a male-dominated industry. News in general is kind of cutthroat, and especially for women, but especially for some reason in the sports journalism field. Was that your experience? Has that been your experience?
Yes. And it's broken my heart. Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Listen, I'm so tired of sugarcoating things, Megan. It's it's probably my biggest disappointment on my side, or I guess our industry as a whole. Especially because as women, what do we say? We talk about the men all the time, and we're always and they're keeping us down and the glass ceiling, and we do it to ourselves half the time. And to me, it's inexcusable. So I remember when I got to ESPN, and I was so excited because there were not many, but a couple of other on-air women who had children. And I just wanted to pick their brain. One in particular, I wanted to pick her brain because how do you do this on the national level with little kids, and she wasn't having it.
Really?
I very clear, you're not on my level, next. So I was sorry. One of the people that I kind of idolized for so many years too, watching from afar, that happened many times. And I felt so alone, because in general in sports, you don't want to rely on the men early on in my career.
So, question for you, Taylor. Since you work with a lot of women, have you come across asking older, more seasoned nurses or older women in general advice on something related to life, and they shut you down? Or have you found them to be helpful?
I feel like the people that I've come in contact with, they've all been helpful. I haven't had anybody just outright say, oh, you're not on my level, like they did in this video, and not want to offer any type of advice, because I feel as though, at least the units I worked on, all of the women pulled together in order to kind of just help each other out, no matter what it was. Mm-hmm. So personally, I have not. Mm-hmm. Hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, continue.
Or advice or help, because you're assuming, especially when I came out of college in 1995, that they don't want you there anyway, which wasn't the case. It's just kind of what's taught to you, the assumption. It was the case with some, but I don't want to put everybody in that basket. But you're supposed to be there for each other as the women. until you are, apparently. And it just was another level at ESPN. What I realized, though, again, was I'm grateful for that, because I realized that, gosh, once I'd been there a few years and got that second contract and thought, okay, maybe I have a shot here to continue this career, that I was determined to not allow other women to feel the way I had, alone and scared to death. So I remember trying really hard when other women would come in and reaching out, and most of them did not have kids. I don't think any of them had kids really, and some of them had no interest, and that's fine. I used to host, like your Stella and Dot, like your jewelry parties and clothing cabbie parties and whatever, and I did it to try to invite people over, and I'm such a social butterfly, and most of the time it didn't work. They didn't really show up, but it's okay. That was their choice, and I just thought, if I'm going to complain about how I was treated, then I owe it to the next woman to at least offer a hand, an olive branch. It didn't really get much better through the years, but I got better with it myself, and I think that's the key. Once you realize that you're trying, you just can't control how everybody else receives things or behaves, and then you kind of get. I found a peace with it. It's also one of those things where it's a lesson quite often. I think we hear it a lot in sports. Like, we tell our kids, your favorite athlete, you don't want to meet them, because sometimes you're disappointed. Mm-hmm. That's what happened with me with a couple of women, where I was like, gosh, I had you here for years. And
who specifically?
I worked with you. Nice try, Megan Kelly.
Overall thoughts.
I honestly think it's sad. I feel as though women in general, even though some guys may not try to have like this superiority complex over women, sometimes it just happens. Like you're talking about in my workplace, in the hospital setting, when somebody sees a female come into the room wearing scrubs, automatically they're like, oh, you're the nurse, you're the CNA, and things of that nature. Whereas the person that could be walking into the room could be the doctor, the nurse practitioner. They don't give them like a higher status level, basically, until you have to go back and prove to them, hey, this is what I'm doing. But then in regard to the women basically downgrading one another, it just goes back to the question of why.
Yeah. That's interesting. Because I've heard it before where women have had female bosses and their woman boss has been just awful to them. I've had a woman boss before, but she was really nice to me. Then again, I don't know like what happened behind the scenes, what is said behind the scenes or anything, but to me she's always been nice, very helpful, and trying to push me in the best direction for myself. So I haven't personally experienced that whole, I guess, cattiness that can come from having a female boss personally, but also I never really worked in like a female dominated area either. Like I've always mostly male dominated. So I don't know. But I really liked how Sage, instead of like dwelling on it and like feeling sad about it and stuff like that, she was like, okay, well, I'm going to make the difference here that I can in this workplace and try to make it better and try to make it better for the next people coming up and inviting them out and doing hospitable things and stuff like that. So I think that's a really good way to look at it, is instead of like dwelling on stuff, oh, I'm so sad that this person didn't turn out how I expected them to. Well, let me be that person who I think is better.
Right.
Let me be that to someone else. So I think that was cool.
I agree 100%.
All right. We have a question.
I got a question.
Oh, why don't women support other women in the workplace?
I think it's honestly jealousy. If somebody, unfortunately, I want to say this. If somebody who came in had like their head kind of crouched down, their shoulders kind of bent over, and they're a woman, they're coming in and they're trying to go to the supervisor and they're trying to like basically work, I feel as though the supervisor would not be as mean towards them as a person who came in shoulders pushed back, confident, not rude, but confident in whatever business they are in, coming into the supervisor. The supervisor will basically belittle them. You know what I mean? In order to ensure like, oh, your plays A, B, and C because you are my employee. You're not the supervisor A, B, and C. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would say it goes back to jealousy too, or it goes back to some form of insecurity. I would say, like, you don't want this person to surpass you.
Right.
You don't want this person to still, I don't know, it depends on the job, of course, but still your clients or get more awards or whatever the case is. Yeah, I think it goes back to insecurity overall,
Exactly.
which I think women tend to deal with more than men would deal with. Obviously, I don't have any stats on that, but that's just my guess.
I mean, I could see that. I feel as though women were just overall more self-conscious about not only how we look, and then once you start getting like mid-20s, if you want kids, oh my goodness, I'm not married. Why am I not married? I want kids. We're supposed to have kids by 30 years old. What is going on? How did I mess up my life? And it just goes on and on and on, you know? And it's like women, we have all these boxes that we were supposed to like mentally check, and if we don't check one of those boxes, just the anxiety honestly just starts building up, instead of just being like, you know what, this is who I am, this is where my life is right now. Not saying I won't get to those boxes, and even if I don't, who cares? You know, like, this is me, let's just love me for who I am.
Yeah, I agree. Let us know in the chat what you think on that question.
If anything, I only found hostility between women rather than between men and women. And I found that the quickest and easiest way to show that you have a fight and you're involved in making the world a better place is to claim you're a feminist and claim that you are out there to stop men oppressing women. But in my personal experience, what I kept experiencing is women oppressing other women, particularly at work. So I found,
Interesting.
yeah.
Why particularly at work?
Maybe it was my personal experience, but what I found working with women in the UK and working with British women in general is there was a level of wanting to being very good friends with women until you feel like they might surpass you, and particularly in a work environment. And I found that they would encourage men more than they would encourage women in a teaching environment. So if they have a male colleague, they'll kind of encourage him towards a promotion, but they wouldn't encourage women. And I remember walking into interviews, and if I would see a panel of women, I would automatically know I'm not getting the job, and I'd walk out. I'd walk out and just think there's no point. Whereas if I would see a man, woman, a man, I'd be like, okay, I stand a chance, and I'd go in with. And I always found having a female boss was torturous. Every job I worked in, if I had a female boss, it was a matter of time before I felt bullied out of it. I only felt it from women. And I don't know if that's a gender thing, or if that's an appearance thing, or if that is just an age thing because I was younger then. I don't know what the confounding variable was, but it kept me a bit suspicious of the feminist movement, because I couldn't understand why the enemy was men when it felt like the enemy was within.
What do you think?
The whole feminist movement. Let's start with
The
that
F word.
first. Oh my goodness. Most of the people that I've seen, okay, that claim that they were feminists, they just went out and said, oh, I hate men. You know what I mean? I hate them. I can't stand them. You know, hair colored a certain way, and oh, I can't stand men. But they'll be out here with different signs and everything, basically saying, oh, we are being suppressed. But are we? Are we being suppressed? Or are you just making it... Not making it up, because there's obviously some discrepancies within the workplace between men and women, but are you doing everything in your power to surpass those discrepancies in the workplace, or are you just focusing on the fact that you hate men and you are being suppressed?
Yeah, instead of focusing on what you can do and what you can control, you're over here focusing on and thinking that men hate, or that you hate men, and your attention isn't where it should actually be.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and the other aspect of the video when she was talking, it's kind of what we were saying earlier. Women being intimidated by other women who have a level of confidence and the level of work skill that would allow them to elevate in whatever job that they are in. And as soon as you see that, as soon as certain female supervisors see that, they're automatically threatened. They don't want anybody to basically go higher than them in whatever they are doing. It just stems to jealousy.
And it shouldn't be like that, because it's like, I feel like no matter what gender, race, what you look like, you should always be trying to help the other person in whatever way that may look.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Miss Anya says my immediate supervisor is female, and she is a phenomenal leader and teacher. That's great.
That is really good.
Positive experience we see. That's good. Okay. What was the title of today's video again? Proof women can be traditional and strong. I think we should answer that question just because why not? So I think absolutely women can be traditional and strong. I think that's the whole thing about being a traditional woman is that you have to be strong because you have to be selfless, and to continuously be selfless and continuously put others before yourself and make sure everyone else is good, you have to have a level of strength upon yourself. So
No, I agree. I mean, I definitely feel like you can be vocal. Okay, you can be vocal and say what you do not do and do not want. But like for me, as an example, I would say I'm pretty strong. I'm very headstrong. However, I am married,
Yes.
right? So if something is not made to eat at night for dinner, guess who is probably going to make something?
You.
Me, right? And even though that's like a traditional wife's role, I do it. Why? Because we have different characteristics that are basically indwelled in us at birth. There is power in being feminine, right? There is power in that. And the more you embrace that, the more basically the stronger that you get, instead of being like, oh, I'm not one of those women. I will never cook for my man. Why?
Why not? Yeah.
Like, you're kind of belittling yourself by saying things of that nature, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but like when I cook something and like I give it to Josh or whatever, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's good," I'm like, "Yeah, I did that." I don't know. I felt like a sense of pride, honestly. Not gonna lie.
No, I feel that. Like, I may not express it. I might be like this, okay, but inside I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, the answer is yes. Women can be traditional and strong.